Hello. 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 हेलो.
आवाज आ रही है सर? आपकी आवाज आ रही है?
आ रही है?
हाँ बिल्कुल आ रही है सर.
तो कहाँ गए? विराट किधर गया?
आई थिंक उनकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है विराट भाई की, इसलिए उन्होंने बोला आप ही करेंगे करके.
अच्छा, अभी ऐसा है क्या?
हम्म.
हेलो. गुड आफ्टरनून ऑल viewers. Here we are ready to speak on the seminar on LLP, OPC and CSR, which lecture will be delivered by our renowned personality, Regional Council member, Shri Vikas Jain. He is a chartered accountant by profession and with heavy huge experience at Ahmedabad branch of WRC and various honored post seminar is this chairman, vice chairman, Vikasa chairman. It is a great honor to this place for the establishing this Virat Shah, this Vikas Jain. We want to express our gratitude to well honor our speaker Vikas Jain, who has spared precious time for us and graced the occasion with his presence. I request Vikas Jain to please speak.
Thank you very much sir. Please confirm if I am audible.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, audible.
Yeah, thank you sir. So thank you very much sir for the nice introduction. And in the last week, this is the third presentation that I am delivering on this particular platform. It's always great to have the mentors and guides, seniors like that of Bapna Saab, is so energetic and always ready to guide us. I would also like to congratulate Virag Bhai because he has been helping us to make such a great use of this time in lockdown. Friends, I hope that all are keeping well in this tough time, and the only best thing that we can do probably is to hone our skills. And I am also glad to interact with all the members because this helps me as well to brush up my knowledge on the subjects which are sometimes not being used regularly. So such is the topic I would say today. CSR, that is relevant to very few, and OPC is a very good topic, very good vehicle for the business organizations, but is being very rarely used in the country. So I think if somebody can take interest in this, then this can be a great tool for carrying out the business. So OPC is a wonderful tool, I would say. The only problem is awareness. Most of the people are not aware of OPC. So today I'll discuss in OPC as well in detail, and that can be useful to each and every professional. So friend, first topic that I have to deal with today is CSR. Yeah. So today the first topic is CSR. Friends, there has been a lot of buzz around CSR when it was first time introduced in the Companies Act 2013. This structured codification may be new to us, but friends, in India, since the time immemorial, since ages, the people have been doing CSR, that is a corporate social responsibility, you can say, or the social responsibility. So this since has been introduced in the corporates or the Companies Act, this is being said as corporate social responsibility. Otherwise, such healthy practice is prevalent in India for generations, for years and years, for centuries, right? So the concept of CSR in India, as I said, is not new. The only thing is it has been brought in through the Companies Act. This is the concept which helps the poor and the disadvantages. The idea was also supported by several religions, I would say, and it is continuously being supported by several religions. If you talk about the Muslim religions, then there is a concept of zakat, which is nothing but a donation from one who is earning from that earning he specifically gives something to the poor and to the disadvantaged people. Then in Hindus also we do have the dharmada that have been for years, so many schools, hospitals, and food to the below poverty people is being given with the help of the dharmada, so many other things. And Sikhs also, the Sikh, they also have philosophy of Dashant. So this is nothing new. We have been seeing this for years and ages. In India, in the pre-independence era, the business which pioneered industrialization along with fighting for the independence also followed this idea. Friends, they put up the idea by setting up various charitable foundations, educational institutions, healthcare institutions, so many trusts for various community developments and others. And then donation was either monetary form or otherwise for various activities of charity or philanthropy that were taken out of the personal savings, which neither belonged to the shareholders nor did it constitute an integral part of the business. So what the difference now in this CSR is, CSR, the amount is to be spent necessary from the corporate, whereas in the earlier time the people from their own sources, they people were doing, which was not the amount of the or the purpose of the corporate. Now the CSR term came into common use early in the 1970s, though it was seldom being abbreviated, but by late 1990s the concept was fully recognized. People and institutions across all sections of the society started supporting it. Then in 1977, less than half of the Fortune 500 firms ever mentioned CSR in their annual report. By the end of 1990, almost 90% of the Fortune 500 firms embraced this CSR as an essential element in their organizational goals or structures and actively promoted their CSR activities in their annual reports. Friends, CSR means and includes but is not limited to: 1. It is a project or programs relating to the activities specified in Schedule 7 of the Companies Act, or project or programs relating to activities which are undertaken by the board of directors of the company in pursuance of the recommendation of the CSR committee of the board as per declared CSR policy of the company enumerated in Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. So this CSR is mainly being dealt by the company's Schedule 7, and in Schedule 7 they have in detail they have mentioned which are the category of activities that can be undertaken under CSR and which activities cannot be undertaken under CSR. So there are almost 12 points, 1 to 12 points that they have mentioned, and falling under those 12 points, CSR activities can be undertaken. So see, what is CSR policy? CSR policy is something which relates to the activities that would be undertaken by the company as specified in Schedule 7 of the Act and the expenditure thereon which would be incurred, excluding the activities undertaken in pursuance of normal course of business of a company. So these are the activities which are not covered under the normal course of the business, but they are the activities which are included in the CSR policy of the company, and this policy must compulsorily cover those items which are mentioned in item number 1 to item number 12 of the Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. And to which companies this is applicable? Corporate responsibility, CSR, corporate social responsibility, is covered mainly by Section 135 of the Companies Act as well as Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. So in Section 135, what they mentioned is this is applicable to all the companies which hits any of these criteria. So which are the criteria? Every company that having either of the following in the immediately preceding financial year. First criteria is net worth of 500 crore rupees or more. Then second one is turnover. If the turnover of the company is 1000 crore rupees or more. And the third one, net profit of INR 5 crore or more. So if any of these conditions is being hit or is matched, then the company will have to do CSR, will have to incorporate CSR, irrespective of whether the company is a private company or a public company. But CSR will have to be followed if any of these three conditions is being hit by the company. Now, CSR committee. What is CSR committee? Under every company to whom CSR provision of Section 135 is applicable, they will have to form a CSR committee so as to look after the CSR policy, its implementation, its design, its execution, everything. So CSR committee must comprise of 3 or more directors with at least one independent director. If there is any independent director in the company, then at least one independent director must be included in the CSR committee, and total number of directors in the CSR committee must be minimum 3 or more. And if there is no independent director, if the provision of the independent directors are not applicable to the company, then any 2 or more directors can form the CSR committee. So if independent directors provision are applicable, then 2 plus 1, minimum 3 is required. If the provisions are not applicable, then minimum 2 directors, it's fine. Then whatever the composition of the CSR committee, that has to be disclosed in the board of directors report, which is being issued under section 134 subsection 3. Then this committee once formed, what is the responsibility of the committee, friends? Committee is responsible for preparing, formulating and recommending to the board the CSR policy of the company, which shall indicate the activities that are to be undertaken as per schedule 7. So broadly, this committee is responsible first for the preparation of the policy, then the formulation of the policy, and then recommend these policies to the board of directors and the CSR policy of the company, and then this will have to be implemented. Then again, the CSR committee is responsible for monitoring the CSR policy from time to time. It is not so that once the policy has been formed, it is over. No, the policy should be kept on to be monitored from time to time. Regularly, the CSR committee should monitor the policy. Then apart from this, responsibility of the company's board, the board of directors of the company is also responsible. They are responsible once the policy has been formed, prepared, designed, then and submitted to the board. Then it is the board's responsibility to just go and see the policy, and then after waiting, they have to approve the policy, and then they need to disclose the CSR policy in the board of directors report and also on the company's website. They need to ensure the implementation of CSR activities as per the policy. So after the policy is framed or formed and approved by the board, it's board's responsibility to see that the policy is implemented. They must ensure that the company spends in every financial year at least 2% of the average net profit made during the 3 immediately preceding financial years. So what is the amount that is required to be spent? The amount is at least 2% in every financial year, at least 2% of the average net profit made during the immediately 3 preceding financial years. That has to be done. Then directors report to specify reasons in case the specified amount is not spent. Friends, there may be a particular case, maybe for some reason or other, whatever the amount, that is the 2% of the average net profit that is required to be spent, if for some reason or other it could not be spent, then it is the responsibility of the board to disclose the same in the board of directors report that they have not been able to spend the amount, whatever the reason may be, they need to mention. Or maybe there is they might have spent some amount, but still some amount is pending. Then they can mention that 2% was the total amount. We have spent this, and this amount is yet to be spent. We have not spent for the reasons, and we will spend in the future. So this paragraph needs to be included in the report. Then how this 2% amount that needs to be calculated. Friends, for every financial year, the corporate social responsibility spending would be computed as 2% of the average net profits made by the company during every block of 3 preceding financial years. So that needs to be seen. The block of the 3 preceding financial year needs to be seen. And this average net profit, what is the average net profit? This average net profit is the amount which is calculated as per section 198. Right. So this average net profits are to be calculated in accordance with the section 198. Then the net profit for the section 135 and CSR rule shall mean the net profit before tax as per books of accounts and shall not include profits arising from branches outside India. So whatever profit that is being earned locally in India and not from the branches outside India. So for example, if there is a company which exports from India and some profit is earned, obviously that profit needs to be included because that is from the Indian company itself, an Indian branch only, though they are exporting. But what it means, if somebody is having some subsidiary company in foreign country, or if they are having some branch in the foreign country, and if that branch is exclusively doing the business over there and they are earning something over there, then even if it is not included, it's fine. It is not required to be included. Then there is an amendment which is suggested, but that is not yet been notified. Friends, if unspent amount is not related to ongoing project, what does it mean? Ongoing project. For example, if in CSR policy we have decided to build some school, so that project of school is ongoing. So if this amount unspent is related to that and is not related to that such kind of ongoing project, then the transfer to funds specified in Schedule 7 within 6 months of the end of the financial year. If no such ongoing projects are there, still the amount is unspent, then this amount needs to be transferred within 6 months of the end of the financial year to the fund. However, if the amount unspent is related to some ongoing project, in our example, if we continue, for example, if the project for the school is going on, but the amount is not spent as much was required to be spent, then unspent amount to be transferred to unspent CSR account in a scheduled bank for that financial year in 30 days and to be spent in 3 years from the transfer. So what we'll have to do is, first we'll have to earmark the amount. We see that this was the amount, this should have been spent, but this is short spent or unspent. So that short spent or unspent amount that needs to be transferred to a scheduled bank unspent CSR account, which would be a separate account for this particular purpose, and that this needs to be transferred within 30 days and has to be spent or used in the next 3 years from the date of transfer. And even if it cannot be done in the 3 years, then that amount needs to be transferred for the specified fund that has been mentioned within 30 days of the expiry of such 3 years. Till now, friends, there is no financial fine, penalty, or imprisonment or anything with regards to the CSR policy. The only thing is that you need to include this amount or include this information in your board of directors report. But now they are proposing, which is yet to be notified, section 134 clause 7. If there is a contravention of the provisions of 134 5 or 6, that is if the amount is not spent on, or even if it is not spent and then not transferred to the specified fund or to the unspent CSR account, then this will attract, the company will attract a fine of minimum 50,000 rupees, which may extend to 25 lakh rupees. And every officer in default will be liable, or he may be imprisoned up to 3 years, or with fine of 50,000 to 5 lakh rupees, or both. So the penalties are huge. If this is proposed, this is yet to be notified. So friends, I think India is the one of the first country to include such kind of penal provisions if this annual CSR compliance is not done. So as I said, there are almost 12 activities which are listed in the Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. I'll not deal all the activities in detail because this is very well clearly mentioned in the Schedule 7. But yet, in just for the sake of the information, I would like to discuss this in brief, I would say. So first is eradicating the hunger, poverty and malnutrition. Next one is promotion of the education, special education, enhancing the vocational skills, then promoting the gender equality and empowering women, then setting up of hostels, old age homes, orphanages, facilities for the senior citizens, reducing inequalities in the socially, economic and backward groups, then ensuring the environment sustainability, ecological balance, animal welfare, protection of national heritage, art and culture, measures for the benefit of armed forces, veterans, war widows and their dependents, training to promote rural sports, nationally recognized sports, Paralympic sports and Olympic sports, that is for sports. So the kind of activities are upliftment of the general people, like hunger, poverty, I said, then educational, vocational trainings, then the women, socially and economically backward groups, environmental, national heritage sites and all these things, then armed forces, then sports activities, then the contribution of to the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund or any other fund set up by the central government or the state government for socio-economic development and relief, and funds for the welfare of the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, other backward classes, minorities and women. Then for rural development projects, maybe some slum area development projects, or disaster management, including the relief, rehabilitation and reconstruction activities. So for such kind of activities, all these 1 to 12, which has been mentioned, I've covered here in brief, but in detail you will find in Schedule 7. Then a company may also conduct or implement its CSR program through trust, society or Section 8 companies. किसी को भेजिए ना पानी के लिए, उमेंद्र होगा प्लीज, मेरा लेक्चर चल रहा है. Yeah, so a company may also implement its CSR programs through the trust, societies, or even Section 8 companies operating in India, which are not set up by the company, which are not set up by the company itself. So through other companies also it can done. That is the General Circular number 21, Public 2014, dated 18th June. Only such CSR activities will be taken into consideration as are undertaken within India, and the company has to give preference to the local areas and areas around where it operates for spending the amount earmarked for CSR activities. So basically, friends, the idea is because when the company is operating in one particular area, so they would be maybe at times disturbing the environment of that local area or the resources they are consuming locally. So the people who resides nearby, maybe at times they are at disadvantages. So as to make this good, or so as to compensate, or so as to help them, it is the duty of the corporate who is operating in that particular area to do it locally. So if, for example, if a company is operating in some area of Gujarat, then to the extent possible it should do the expenditure in that particular area and not do it by going to Maharashtra and spend their activity, or if the company that is there operating in Maharashtra and then they are doing the spending in the state of Andhra Pradesh, so it is not advisable. So what it is mentioned, they should always give preference to the local areas where they are operating, so the people nearby can get the benefit from such kind of activities. Then contribution of any amount, directly or indirectly, to any political party under Section 182 of the Act shall not be considered as CSR activity. So it is very clearly and categorically mentioned. Sometimes what happens, there may be some political parties, they may be coming to you and they would be saying, please contribute to it, our party. So such kind of amount, if it is being contributed by any company, shall not be treated as CSR. So this is one good thing. Otherwise, most of the corporates would have been giving the donation to the CSR in the name of the CSR. The donations would have been given and they would have been only being used for the purpose of contesting the elections, but not for the real benefit of the people, maybe. This we have discussed. Yes. Then as per General Circular number 10, 23rd March 2020, MCA clarified that the spending of CSR fund for COVID-19, see, we all are facing the issues of COVID-19 as of now, and government took the cognizance of the same, and on 23rd of March 2020, by Circular number 10, they clarified that the spending of CSR fund for COVID-19 is also eligible as a CSR activity. So fund may be spent for various activities related to COVID-19 under item number 1 and 12 of Schedule 7. The Government of India has set up the Prime Minister Citizen Assistance and Relief in Emergency Situation Fund. So we all know this now. This is called as PM CARES Fund. Lot of buzz is around this word PM CARES Fund. It is there in the news items and everything, and every day some requests and appeals are being made to donate, and we have seen that huge donations have been made by the corporates like that of Tata, Reliance to the PM CARES Fund. So the PM CARES Funds has been set up to provide relief to those affected by any kind of emergency or distress situation. Accordingly, it is clarified that any contribution if made to the PM CARES Fund will also qualify as CSR expenditure under the Companies Act Section 135. So whatever amount that is being spent on item 1 and 12 as per Schedule 7 for the shall also for the purpose of COVID will also be included, and if any amount is contributed for PM CARES Fund, this will also be included as CSR. However, There's a strange thing that has happened is that if any contribution is made to the CM relief fund or state relief fund for COVID-19, then it will not be included in Schedule 7. So if any amount that is contributed to the PM CARES fund, then it is eligible. However, if any amount is contributed to the CM relief fund or state relief fund for COVID-19, then it will not be treated as the CSR item under Schedule 7, and hence this will not qualify for the CSR expenditure. So there is a big dilemma, friends. On the request of the states, so many corporates were there who contributed some amount to state and some amount to PM CARES fund. So now they are under the dilemma. They thought that while spending, they thought that the amount which we are contributing to these both will be covered under CSR. But unfortunately, the amount that has been contributed to PM CARES fund is eligible, but the amount that has been contributed to the CM relief fund or the state relief fund will not be eligible. So friends, this is quite a bit debatable issue, though it has been clearly mentioned that it will not be. But the advocates are of the view that if it can be challenged in the court, then definitely the company will get a relief, because they have spent the amount well before this circular came in, and they have done this with the view that this will qualify for the CSR expenditure. So they are put at a disadvantage. So the route of the court is open for them. This is what, when I discussed with one of my advocate friend, he also said that he is of the view that yes, it can be challenged and the relief can be sought. Then the contribution which is being made to the state disaster management authority to combat COVID-19 will qualify for the CSR expenditure under item number 12 of the Schedule 7, and this is also clarified by the circular number 10/2020. So CM relief fund is not there, and state relief fund is not there, but state disaster management authority is there, and if any amount is contributed to state disaster management authority, then this will be eligible and qualified. Now, spending for COVID-19 related activities qualified under item number 1 and 12 of Schedule 7 we have discussed. Payment, yes, this is important question. During the lockdown, first government instructed to make complete payment, full payment to the salaries and wages of to the employees and workers, that included contract labor, all. So companies thought that since we have not done any activity, still you are giving the salaries or the wages to the employees and worker, shall it be eligible for the CSR? Because this is nothing but a kind of social responsibility only, wherein we are making the payment to such guys. Then friends, it has been very well clarified by this circular that such amount will not be adjusted against CSR and will not be treated as CSR. The next item was payment of wages to the temporary workers, including the casual laborers during the lockdown period. Again, the fate is same. This also cannot be included in the CSR, and this is clarified by the circular 10 dated 2020. Now, if some ex gratia payment to temporary or casual or daily wages worker is done over and above the disbursement of their wages for the purpose of fighting COVID-19, then yes, this will be admissible as CSR expenditure. So friends, we need to very clearly bear in mind that if any amount is paid towards salary or wages, it is not allowable as CSR. Even if it is paid to some temporary or casual workers, still it is not allowable. But if any ex gratia payment is made to the temporary, casual or daily wage workers, then yes, it is allowable as CSR expenditure. Now, this is an FAQ was released by the MCA. Again, in FAQ, they have very categorically mentioned these things, that whether contribution made to PM CARE fund shall be qualified, and they have said yes, contribution to PM CARE fund shall qualify for CSR expenditure. Chief Minister's Fund, they very categorically said that it will not qualify. Then State Disaster Management Authority, they have said yes, it will qualify. With the spending of CSR fund for COVID-19 related activities, then yes, they have categorically said yes, this will qualify as CSR expenditure. This may be relating to the promotion of healthcare, including the preventive healthcare and sanitation and disaster management. Then whether payment of salary, wages to employees and workers, including contract labor during the lockdown, can be adjusted against the CSR expenditure of the company. They have said no, this cannot be. But if any ex gratia is done, payment is done to the temporary or casual or daily wage workers, then yes, this will be allowed. The same shall be admissible. Explicit approval of board and certificate from the statutory auditor would be required for this particular purpose. That's it. So this is all about CSR. I have covered everything about CSR, the circular, the FAQs, and the provisions of Schedule 7 as well as Section 135. Nothing much remains in the CSR. So now let us move to our next topic, that is the one-person company that we would be dealing now. So friends, uh, one-person company, OPC, I'm sure that many of us might not have even gone through what OPC is. This particular section, all the rules made thereunder are mostly ignored. They are not being seen. This is the, I would say, the stepson kind of approach or attitude is being followed towards OPC. But believe me, friends, if we just see this OPC, this is a beautiful concept which I believe, and great benefit can be taken in terms of OPC. Why and how, I'll share with you in the next few slides. Right, friends. So the concept of OPC, though in India we are not much aware of the concept of OPC, but worldwide it is prevalent and it is a very successful form or model of doing business in the countries like US, UK, and few other European countries since years. Then this concept of OPC was recommended first by Dr. J.J. Irani Committee in the on 31st of May 2005. The revolutionary new concept of OPC was introduced by the companies at 2013. Though it was suggested or recommended by the J.J. Irani Committee in May 2005, so it finally saw the light of the day in the Companies Act 2013. And still, though it is there almost for the last 7 years, but it is not much popular because we professionals also might not have spreaded the word, and we have also neglected it by and far, because after company, if anything, if after the private company, if anything comes to mind, then the first thing is normally the LLP, and OPC is never talked about. Friends, OPC in India sounds interesting and may serve as a new tool or new model of or new vehicle of doing business for those who look forward to start their own venture with a structure of organized business. See, when we talk about the proprietary concern, or the partnership forms, these are not much structured. They are very loosely structured and the way we wish we are doing the business. But this OPC is a company. This being a company, this being a corporate, is very much a structured, organized business or structured business, I would say, and tool. So the OPC cannot carry business. There is a restriction on OPC. OPC can do any kind of activity, barring mainly two activities. One is the NBFC, NBFI. So the OPC cannot carry on the business of non-banking financial investment activity, including the other thing is investment in the security of any other body corporate. So it cannot act as a holding company. It cannot invest in the security of any other body corporate. So only this is the restriction on this. Otherwise, there is no other restriction. If you want to carry out a business of some architect, yes, you can do it. If you want to have some trading business, you can do it. If you want to have some manufacturing business, you can do it. So any kind of business, may it be in the manufacturing sector, may it be in trading sector, or may it be in service sector, all such kind of activities can very well be covered under OPC. Now, OPC will give the new businessman all benefits, as I said earlier, that all the benefits that are available to a private company, these are available to OPC, because OPC ultimately is nothing but a private company. The only difference is private company would be having compulsorily 2 or more persons, whereas OPC would be 1 person only. The name itself suggests 1 person company. So barring these two, there is no change, no difference, nothing. So there's so many flexibilities, so many relaxations are categorically provided to the OPC, which are otherwise not available to a private limited company. So yes, the formalities, the processes these are very less so far as the OPC is concerned, but at the same time it retains all the benefits of a private limited company. So the credits are very easily available, just like to companies. You can also get the credits to the OPC. The bank loans, the bankers are always more comfortable with the corporate structure, and so here the OPC is also a corporate structure. The liability undoubtedly is limited, just like any other private company. The liability of OPC, because OPC itself is nothing but a private company. Legal protection for the business, the protection, there is a legal protection to the business that would be available under OPC. Access to market, etc., all in the name of a separate legal entity. Friends, as we all understand that a company is a separate legal entity, and so is an OPC. OPC is, again, as I say, it is nothing but a one-person company, and this being a company is always having a separate legal entity. So this would be different from the entity of its promoter. So friends, the various features of the private limited companies are already incorporated in OPC, but the only difference is the formalities would be lesser, it would be less stringent, less rigid structure, but still this would be a corporate structure. So for marketing, branding, all these things also this help you a lot. Now, there are some restrictions with regards to OPC. First thing is that the paid up capital should not exceed 50 lakh rupees. If it exceeds 50 lakhs, then it cannot be incorporated as an OPC. If, for example, if you want to incorporate a company with 60 lakh rupees, then it is not possible. And the average turnover of the company should not be exceeding 2 crore rupees of the last 3 financial years. So in the last 3 financial years, the turnover of the company OPC must not exceed 2 crores. So once it is in, see, for the new OPC, when we are incorporating, there is no question of turnover, because till the time the OPC is incorporated, there won't be any turnover. The only condition that we need to see is the paid up capital. It should not be incorporated with a paid up capital of 50 lakh rupees or more, of more than 50 lakhs rather, I would say. But less than that, it's fine. The other big advantage that it gives you, because if you are having a company, then compulsory, other than the OPC, then compulsory you need to have 2 persons. So even if you do not have any other person, but you need to find some friends, some family members that you need to include, and the kind of the responsibilities or the liabilities are there under the companies that these days, you normally don't want to include the spouse or somebody, maybe senior, maybe your father, mother, somebody from the house, you don't want to, from the family, you don't want to include in that. So in such case also, OPC becomes a beautiful tool, because it can be incorporated in only one single person. So you are not posing any unnecessary risk or threat to the other persons in your family, just for the sake of incorporating a company, because you need to have minimum 2 persons. So you are one, so you need to have some other person. So either you have to rely on your friends or relatives or somebody else, or from your family members, which is again a riskier term in today's proposal. So it's always better in such scenario. So 50 lakh is fairly good big amount. So any company can be incorporated below 50 lakhs with OPC. So it's comfortable. Anybody would be comfortable with that. So the features of OPC, as I said, one thing is 50 lakh rupees, capital should not exceed 50 lakh rupees. That average turnover should not be exceeding 2 crore for the last 3 financial years. Then there should be only one shareholder and one nominee. So friends, in case of OPC, as it is one promoter company only, one person company only, so the entire 100% shareholding shall be with one person only. So the person who holds this shareholding would be the sole owner of that company. But friends, since this is a company, and what happens tomorrow if that something wrong happens to that one sole shareholder? So it has been provided very well in the law that there must be one nominee. So since the other person is only nominee, so he would be having the rights only and no responsibilities, no liabilities, and those rights will also come into existence only once the sole shareholder ceases to exist, or something wrong happens to him. He becomes incapacitated to enter into any contract. Maybe he becomes he becomes mentally ill, or he becomes lunatic, or something like such kind of thing that happens to him, and he is no longer capable of entering into contract on permanent basis. then in such case, the other nominee will step into the shoes of that shareholder, or in the death of the sole shareholder, he will step into the shoes of that one promoter and he will become the shareholder, and in such case he will have to nominate one other person. So friends, there should be one shareholder and one nominee. Nominee is required because if something goes wrong with the shareholder, then the nominee can become the shareholder, and once he becomes the shareholder, he becomes the owner of that company. He has to nominate some other person. The OPC must have minimum one director. Friends, as the name itself suggests, one person company, so this is one person company only. So minimum one director must be there. But yes, if the company wish, then it can have more than one director. If they believe that the business is such which needs more than one director, then it is at the sweet will of the company that they can have 2 directors, they can have 3 directors, they can have more directors, but the maximum number can be 15. So OPC can have more directors as well, but since this is the OPC, only minimum one director is required. Then it should also be noted that the word OPC, that is the one person company, shall be mentioned in bracket after the name of such company wherever its name is printed, affixed or engraved. For example, if it is Vikas Jain one person company, then it must be written as like Vikas Jain Private Limited, and in the bracket you need to mention one person company. This is a private limited company, obviously, but the only thing is in bracket you need to mention one person company. So after the name of the company, always you need to mention one person company. Paid up share capital, this definition need not discuss. Turnover, this definition again we need not discuss. The word realization of amount from the sales etc. means gross turnover, which includes value of goods or and services and taxes thereon. So including taxes it is. So now let us discuss in some more detail. As I said, for such OPC, what is the bare minimum requirement that you need to have? There must be minimum one shareholder. He would be the sole shareholder of the company. Then there must be minimum one director. Shareholder one means one only. There cannot be more than one. If it is more than one shareholder, it cannot be an OPC because there will be more than one shareholder. But in case of director in OPC, there may be more than one. There may be 2 directors, there may be 3 directors, there may be 4 directors, and so on and so forth. So far as the nominee is concerned, again, since nominee is nothing but a potential shareholder, potential sole owner. So in case if tomorrow the shareholder dies, then the nominee step into his shoes and becomes the shareholder, sole shareholder. So there can be only one nominee. There cannot be more than one nominee. But yes, what if the nominee predeceases the shareholder? If it expires, if the nominee expires before the shareholder, then the shareholder will have to appoint other nominee. So in case the nominee expires before the shareholder, then the shareholder will have to appoint another nominee. But if the shareholder predeceases the nominee, then the nominee will become the shareholder and he will appoint another nominee. So at any point of time, the nominee, if anything wrong goes on or happens, then the nominee has to be appointed. Then who can be a shareholder in the OPC? Friends, it is very categorically mentioned that only a natural person. So any artificial person cannot be a shareholder. He cannot incorporate NNP. So it has to be a natural person who is a resident in India and also a citizen of India can form one person company. So the condition is very categorically and clearly mentioned, specifically mentioned that first thing is the person must be a citizen of India. Even an NRI who is not a citizen of India, if he is a citizen of US and not a citizen of India, then yes, he cannot incorporate OPC. This tool is available only to the persons who are citizen of India. Not only citizen of India, he must also be a resident of India. Why? Because you know that in a Companies Act, there is a condition that minimum one director must be resident in India. That is, he must be in India for 182 days or more. So any natural person, first thing is he must be a natural person. The other thing is he must be a resident, that he must generally stay in India for 182 days or more, and also he must be citizen of India. Such person can only form a one person company. So no minor because he is not eligible to enter into contact on himself, he has to do it through some guardian. So no minor shall become a member or nominee of the one person company. Not only member, but he cannot be a nominee also, because nominee is a potential shareholder. or the potential sole owner, or can hold share with beneficial interest. Then as I said, it has to be a natural person, so other legal entities like that of companies or societies or other body corporates, they also cannot incorporate a one-person company. It also means that the non-resident Indians or foreign citizens cannot form this. We have already discussed. It simply means an individual cannot have different one-person companies in his name. So the restriction is one-person company can be incorporated by a person one only. So one resident Indian citizen can only incorporate one OPC. I cannot have three OPCs in my name or two OPCs in my name. If I'm incorporating any OPC, then maximum number of OPC then can be incorporated for me is one only. That means I can be owner or the promoter of the one-person company maximum in one such OPC. This we have already discussed. Minimum one director, maximum 15 directors. As per the Companies Act, if nothing is mentioned in the incorporation document, it would be assumed the sole shareholder shall also be the sole director in the one-person company. So specifically, if other person is not included as a director in the company, then only the sole person, the sole promoter of the company would be the director, and which shall be practically the case in most of the OPCs, because the one person who incorporates the company would be responsible for all the acts. Friends, the one person company, he'll have to nominate a nominee, and the nominee have to give his prior written consent, who in the death or inability to contract of the owner of the OPC shall come forward and take over the reins of the one person company. So as I said, if something wrong happens with the promoter of the OPC and or inability to enter into a contract, then in such situation the nominee should come forward and he should take over the reins of that particular company. Then he should run the company. So a written consent of the nominee is required in such case. Requirement of being a resident Indian citizen is equally applicable to the nominee as well. So the it is not so, because as I said, the nominee himself is a potential owner. In the event of anything to the owner, he will be the owner. So he should also be a resident Indian, he should be a citizen of India, and he should give his consent in writing. In such case only the such nominee can only be appointed. Further, if the person so nominated become the member of, see, for example, if a person has been nominated in two OPCs, three OPCs, and because something has happened in one of the OPC, and because of that, by virtue of that event, he becomes the sole owner of that OPC, then he will have to immediately do it, means he is to immediately notify some other person for such company. So further, if the person so nominated becomes a member of such a one-person company and is already a member of another one-person company, at the same time, by virtue of rule, he has to decide within the 6 months which one-person company he has to continue, and he will have to write or to the company that yes, he'll be he's choosing this particular company, and for the other company some other nominee has to be appointed. So once, what if a person has been appointed as nominee? For example, let us take a real life example. A husband incorporates a company with wife being the nominee, and maybe after 5 years there is a dispute in both husband and wife, and they are at irreconcilable terms, and suppose they have filed an application in the court for divorce. So in such case, undoubtedly and very obviously, the husband would not like to have his wife as the nominee in this company. So what will happen? So whether he'll be able to change the nominee? Yes, since he is the sole owner, he has got all the rights to change such nominee. So only requirement is he will have to do the necessary procedure with the ROC. he'll have to take a written consent of the other person. He'll have to file the form. INC 5 is the form for this nominee, and he'll have to do that. Then on the death of the sole member, the nominee shall be the person recognized by the company as having title to all the shares of the member. Such nominee shall be entitled to the same dividends and other rights and liabilities to which such sole member of the company was otherwise entitled or liable to. So virtually he steps into the shoes of the original owner. On becoming member, such nominee shall nominate any other person with the prior written consent of such person, who shall, in the event of the death of the nominee who has become member, to become the member of the company. OPC registration process. Friends, this is again very simple process, nothing. You have to have a digital signature for yourself. Apply for the name of the company through the Run web, which is there for the other companies as well. You should get the consent of the nominee in form number INC3. The consent of the form of the nominee should be obtained in form number INC3, and this should also be attached with the form. The person shall file the consent along with the required forms, FICE and EMOA and EOA and other related documents, and shall receive the final certificate of incorporation from the ROC after completing all the process. So if we talk about the various forms that are available, so that are applicable to the OPCs, first is name reservation run, that is same for all. Application for incorporation, that is in SPICE form, and that has to be filed within 20 days from the name approval. Nominee or consent, INC3 is there. The consent of the nominee has to be, earlier I said wrongly 5, this is INC3. So the consent of the nominee has to be obtained in INC3, and that has to be again obtained within 15 days of obtaining such consent. Change in the member or nominee, if there is any change of either of the member or of the nominee, then INC4 needs to be filed within 30 days of occurrence of such event. If any company, the threshold, that is 50 crores and 2 crore turnover, 50 crore capital and 2 crore turnover, this exceeds, then the INC 5 form will have to be filed. There is an intimation to the ROC within 60 days of occurrence of such event. Then the OPC application for conversion will have to be done, and that will be in INC 6. And filing of special resolution in MGT 14 will also be required. That will be required to be done in 30 days of the event. Friends, there are so many relaxations that I said. General meeting, board meeting, such if there are more than one director that is there, 2 directors, 3 directors, then yes, we can have the board meetings, and these board meetings are to be, but there is no requirement of minimum 4 board meetings in a year or such kind of things. So the provision relating to the board meeting, AGM, EGM and notice convening EGM, etc., nothing is applicable because there is a sole member. So the member himself is the 100% owner. So he is the quorum, he is everything. So no need to have the formalities of sending notice for EGM, AGM, conducting EGM, AGM or board meetings. But if there are more than one directors, obviously whenever they are meeting, these would be board meeting, but no such compulsion of minimum 1 meeting, 2 meeting, 4 meetings. Then minutes book, strangely, but it is very good practice, I would say. It is mandatory to maintain the minutes of the OPC. So whatever decision that has been taken by the by the sole shareholder, he has to minutize the things. Then the resolution by such director is entered in the minutes book required to be maintained under section 118, and the date of resolution shall be the date of meeting of the board for the board of directors meeting purpose, and it is not mandatory to record the minutes for contracts entered into the ordinary course of business. But it is always for the ordinary course of business fine, but for all other things it is always advisable to maintain this. So they should the information to the ROC. Information to the ROC, they should inform about every such contract entered and record it in the minutes book by the company. The financial statements to be filed within 180 days of the closure of the financial year. So just like in case of private companies, it is within 30 days of AGM, but since here there is no AGM, so it is the time limit that has been prescribed is 180 days from the financial year. So 180 days. So 30th September is the last date for the filing of the financial statements. The company secretary is not required. It is not mandatory for appointing any company secretary in OPC companies. The annual return of OPC companies can be signed by the director itself. So no such requirement to be signed by any promoter. To be signed by any chartered accountant practicing or by practicing company secretaries or by any other professional. No. So this can simply be signed by the director himself. Since this is an OPC, it is not mandatory to prepare cash flow statement as well. They are also out of the purview of this. So if conversion of OPC to a private limited company, what is the condition? The condition is where the paid up share capital of an OPC exceeds 50 lakhs and the average turnover during the relevant period exceeds 2 crores, it shall cease to be entitled to continue as a PC, and compulsorily it has to go for the conversion or upgradation from OPC to a private company or a public company as it wants to be, as the case may be. But friends, here I would like to have a specific or special mention that this and was or earlier. So earlier it was the paid up capital exceeds 50 lakhs or the average annual turnover exceeds 2 crores. But that was amended in 2015 and now it is 50 lakhs and. So if an OPC is, for example, incorporated with 30 lakhs capital and even if the turnover exceeds 2 crore rupees, still it is not required to upgrade to the OPC. So this is a beautiful concept and great advantage, I would say, because if we are just to retain the capital within that prescribed limit is always within our hand, and turnover may exceed, there is absolutely no problem with that thereafter. Time limit for conversion. So within 6 months from the day when such the capital exceeds beyond 50 lakhs and the average annual turnover exceeds 2 crore rupees, this is the day when this strikes, and within 6 months from this date the conversion will have to be affected. This conversion will have to be effected by 6 months. Now, compliance for conversion. It is mandatory. First thing is to alter its MOA and AOA by passing a resolution and to give effect of the conversion. Also, it is to intimate the ROC in 60 days from the date of applicability of sub-rule 1 in INC 5. Then it has to maintain the minutes book which are mentioned under section 118. And if it is converted into private company, then it needs to have minimum 2 directors and 2 members. And if it is converted into public company, then it needs to have at least 7 members. There may be a reverse case. So now, after going through this and few other benefits, tax benefits and all this, which we'll discuss in the subsequent slides, maybe one would be interested that यार इसमें तो बहुत सारे फायदे हैं, तो क्यों नहीं हम अपनी जो existing private limited company है उसको हम OPC में convert कर दें. So this is the reverse side से. हमने अभी तक जो देखा वो हमने देखा कि OPC हमने बन गई तो उसको कब प्राइवेट कंपनी में कन्वर्ट करना है. तो ओपीसी को प्राइवेट कंपनी में अगर कन्वर्ट करना है तो वो कंपलसरी है अगर वो कंडीशंस जो थ्रेशोल्ड की दी है 50 करोड़ कैपिटल और जो 2 करोड़ एवरेज एनुअल टर्नओवर जो प्रीसीडिंग 3 फाइनेंशियल ईयर में दिया है, अगर वो दोनों चीजें अगर हो जाती है तो आपको कंपलसरी आपको करना ही पड़ेगा, आपके पास कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है. बट अगर आपकी कोई प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी है एंड इफ यू थिंक दैट यू आर गोइंग टू बी बेनिफिटेड एंड यू वांट टू कन्वर्ट योर प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी इनटू ओपीसी, आपको बेनिफिट लेने के लिए, आपकी उसकी फ्लेक्सिबिलिटीज के लिए अगर आप कन्वर्ट करना चाहते हैं तो डेफिनेटली यू कैन डू सो. So but the only thing is, the first and foremost thing is the threshold that needs to be taken care of. So here again what they have mentioned is where the paid up share capital of a private company does not exceed 50 lakhs and the average annual turnover does not exceed 2 crore rupees. तो फ्रेंड्स यहाँ पे एक स्ट्रेंज चीज है, आप देखिए अगर आपकी ऑलरेडी एक प्राइवेट कंपनी है उसकी अगर ये दोनों कंडीशंस अगर मैच हो रही है तो आप उसको नहीं कर पाएंगे. So if the paid up share capital is exceeding 50 lakhs and an average annual turnover अगर 2 करोड़ रुपए है तो आप उसको नीचे आप उसको डिग्रेड या डाउनग्रेड नहीं कर सकते और आप उसको ओपीसी में कन्वर्ट नहीं कर पाएंगे. यहाँ अगर मान लीजिए अगर आपका 30 lakhs कैपिटल है और कैपिटल इज बिलो 50 lakhs and the turnover is exceeding for example 2 crores, but still you will not be able to downgrade to the OPC. Process क्या है कन्वर्जन का? The NOC from all the members and the creditors is required before passing of the resolution for conversion, or passing of special resolution for conversion to the OPC is to be done. Then this special resolution will have to be filed with ROC in MJT 14, and the company shall also file an application in form number INC 6 along with the required fee and prescribed documents with the ROC. Once this is done, फिर वो आपको अप्रूव हो जाएगा. What are the advantages of 1% company? क्यों हम लोग 1% company करना चाहेंगे? The advantages is this three. First is limited liability protection to the directors and shareholder. आज अगर if you are working as a promoter, as a sole proprietor, then there is no concept of limited liability to you, and you will not be protected or immune from the losses, and this will extend to your personal assets as well. But here in case of this OPC, since this is a company and the inherent nature of limited liability is there of the companies, so you will be protected, you will be immune, और आपकी liability जो है, जो आपका paid up share capital है, वहीं तक की होगी. And legal status, this is a company by all means, so इसका legal status as a corporate है, and social recognition for business undoubtedly आपको एक corporate का मिलेगा. Complete control of the company with the single owner, जो मैंने आपको थोड़ी देर पहले बताया कि अगर आपको किसी दूसरे पर्सन को unnecessarily आपके फ्रेंड को, आपके फैमिली को आपको उसके अंदर इंक्लूड करना पड़ रहा है, तो और आपके पास दूसरा कोई पर्सन है नहीं, बहुत बार बहुत सी जद्दोजहद करनी पड़ती है दूसरे आदमी को ढूंढने के लिए, बाहर वाले पे हम रिलाई नहीं कर सकते, और फैमिली वालों को हम इस रिस्क में डालना नहीं चाहते, कंपनीज की पेनल्टीज की और उन सब की चीजों में. तो क्या होता है, वी एंड अप डूइंग ए प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी अननेसेसरली और कंपल्सरली विद सम फैमिली मेंबर और सम आउटसाइडर. तो हम इससे भी बच सकते हैं, हम सोल प्रोप्राइटर को ना करके और कंपनी को ना करके हम ओपीसी में जा सकते हैं. Then this help for testing of business models and enable fundings. हमको एक छोटे लेवल से शुरू करना है, कोई एक बिजनेस को हम वेरियस उसकी सक्सेस को टेस्ट करना है, और तो हम कर सकते हैं. और सब्सिक्वेंटली हमको ये लगता है कि हमको एक बड़े स्केल पे जाना है और सब कुछ करना है, तो भी हम जा सकते हैं. कई बार हमको आगे जाके आईपीओ लाना है, बहुत सारी प्लानिंग होती है. तो जब हम एक छोटे से कंपनी को एक उसकी हिस्ट्री, उसकी सारी जो लीनिएज वगैरह सारी देखी जाती है, तो जब हम एक कंपनी है, कंपनी का सारा सब कुछ स्ट्रक्चर्ड और आरओसी की वेबसाइट में आपको मिलता रहेगा. So rather than starting as a proprietor, it is always better to start a OPC. और as I said कि corporates जो है वो लोगों को बैंक लोन मिलने में भी इजी रहता है, क्योंकि banks always prefer to have a corporate structure to lend rather than to the unstructured proprietors, HUFs or partnership firms. They always prefer corporates over all these. और टैक्स फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी और सेविंग्स हम आगे डिस्कस करेंगे, एंड इजी टू मैनेज एंड फ्रीडम ऑफ कंप्लायंसेस. द कंप्लायंसेस आर फार लेस देन व्हाट दे आर टू बी डन इन केस ऑफ अ प्राइवेट कंपनीज. ओपीसी हम लोगों ने अभी बात की कि इसके अंदर कुछ फायदे हैं, कुछ टैक्सेस एंड ऑल दिस थिंग्स. दिस विल डिस्कस इन द नेक्स्ट 4 slides, and most importantly mitigating the capital gain taxes, scheme and insurance policy benefits, then mitigating the stamp duty and goods and service tax benefits. Friends, mitigating capital gain, अगर हम ये बात करते हैं how, see friends, 1% कंपनी, अगर आपको कोई कैपिटल एसेट परचेज करना है, फॉर एग्जांपल आपको एक हाउस प्रॉपर्टी परचेज करनी है, या आपको एक इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी रह रहा है जिससे की परचेज करनी है. अब आप जो आप इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी परचेज करनी है आपको 1 करोड़ रुपए की या कुछ भी, तो कैपिटल प्लस लोन आप उसके अंदर डाल ही सकते हैं, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. अब हम अगर उसको वापस सेल करना है हमने, तो अगर कैपिटल लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन अगर देखने जाएंगे तो इट इज 36 मंथ्स, 3 साल के बाद ही हमारा लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन होता है. लेकिन अगर हमको 1 साल बाद के उसके बाद या 1.5 साल बाद उसको बेचना है, तो लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन नहीं होता है. तो हम यहाँ पे 1% कंपनी है, हम अगर हमारा सारा का सारा शेयर होल्डिंग हम दूसरे को ट्रांसफर कर देंगे, तो जो है वो लॉन्ग टर्म हो जाएगा, क्योंकि आप शेयर्स ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं 1 साल के बाद, ना कि आपकी प्रॉपर्टी को आप ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं. और since the underlying asset is the property, so it would be transferred. So even after 1 year, when we are transferring the shares, it would be a long term capital gain. This is the first advantage. Then shares की हम बात करें तो 12 महीने मैंने बताया आपको कि वो हो जाता है. And the other thing is, अगर if we talk about the capital gain, so transfer of asset from one person to another, one can transfer shares of OPC to that person after 12 months. तो आपको जो लॉन्ग टर्म और शॉर्ट टर्म का जो डिफरेंस है, वो यहाँ आपको बेनिफिट, आपको जिस तरह से आप देख सकते हैं, आप स्ट्रक्चर कर सकते हैं, आप टैक्स प्लानिंग कर सकते हैं, एंड अकॉर्डिंगली द बेनिफिट कैन बी टेकन. So this is what one of the advantage, mitigating the capital gains, short term or long term wala. The other thing is Keyman insurance policy. As per Income Tax Act, an individual can claim deduction for insurance premiums in computation of the total income under section 80C up to 1 lakh rupees. ये आपको 1 lakh rupees का जो deduction है, I'm not an expert on income tax, but still I think ये शायद 1 lakh ही है या 1,50,000 हो गया है शायद, this 80C deduction. So वो एक हमारी लिमिट है, उसके ऊपर हम कर नहीं सकते. But since in case of a company, we are the only one person, we are the KMP, we are the director, so we can also take a Keyman insurance policy in our name. And if the insurance policy premium is actually exceeding the amount mentioned in 80C, still that additional benefit can also be taken. So a company whereas can claim the deduction for insurance premium paid for the Keyman insurance beyond 1 lakh. So whatever amount, actual amount that is being spent for such person, that can be taken as Keyman insurance policy. और आपका बाकी की जो आपने दूसरी ली वो आपके इंडिविजुअल में भी आप 80C के अंदर आप क्लेम कर सकते हैं. तो आपको वहां का 80C का लिमिट तो आपका है जो है ही है, और यहाँ कीमैन इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी के नाम पे आप दूसरा अमाउंट भी यू कैन क्लेम. So if a sole proprietor converts it into the OPC, it can avail the benefit of higher insurance premium that is being paid by him, and yet the only thing is the maturity or claim benefit of 1010D will not be applicable in this case. Then stamp duty. फ्रेंड्स अभी हमने जो वहां पे देखा कैपिटल गेन की हम लोगों ने बात की, सेम केस अगर इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी के लिए हम स्टैम्प ड्यूटी की बात करें, दो दिस इज अ स्टेट सब्जेक्ट, स्टेट टू स्टेट वो डिफरेंट स्टेट होता रहेगा. An individual has to pay stamp duty on the transfer of capital asset. For example, if we talk about the immovable property in Gujarat, the stamp duty would be it is 5% and 1% is registration fee. So 5% is the stamp duty that is to be paid on that. But हम अगर अंडरलाइंग एसेट तो प्रॉपर्टी इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी है, लेकिन हम जब यहाँ ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं, हम प्रॉपर्टी को ट्रांसफर नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम शेयर्स ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं. व्हेन वी आर ट्रांसफरिंग द शेयर्स ऑफ दैट 1% कंपनी, then the stamp duty would be applicable at much lower rates. It would be far lesser than what is to be paid on the immovable property. And the immovable property being in the name of the OPC, so still it will continue to be in the name of the OPC, so no requirement or nothing is to be done in the case of the sub-registrar office. But the only thing is the share transfer will have to be effected and will have to be informed in ROC. So here we can do this. And in income tax also, if there is a small business wherein हम हमारे प्रॉफिट्स को भी एक ओपीसी में एक प्रॉफिट रहेगा, और यहाँ पे हम लोग हमारे इंडिविजुअल की टैक्स बेनिफिट्स के जो स्लैब्स है वो भी हम क्लेम कर सकते हैं. सो इफ देयर आर टू बिजनेस, वन इज इन ओपीसी, वन इज देयर, सो दैट इज आल्सो पॉसिबल. मे बी उसका कितना बेनिफिट होगा वो तो इंडिविजुअली हर एक को कंसीडर करना पड़ेगा. Goods and service tax, if 20 lakh rupees is for example the basic slab, तो हम लोग एक अपने नाम में अगर हम काम कर रहे हैं तो 20 लाख का वहां हमको स्लैब मिल जाएगा, और 20 लाख रुपीस का ओपीसी के अंदर भी हमको अलग से मिल जाएगा. अब तो जीएसटी के अंदर भी अलग अलग वो स्लैब्स भी इंक्रीज किए हैं, बट जो ये बेसिक जो रूटीन जो है 2020 वाला, वो बेनिफिट भी हम जीएसटी के अंदर हम लोग क्लेम कर सकते हैं. और एंड विद दिस आई कम टू कंक्लूड द प्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ द ओपीसी as well as of the CSR, and I'm sure many of the aspects which were deliberated today in OPC were never been heard of earlier, because we have never given that much of importance to OPC. With this, I request Virag Bhai to please take the charge of the session. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer those questions. Hello. हेलो या बापना साहब.
हाँ जी
सर कंप्लीट हो गया है सेशन. अगर कोई क्वेश्चन आंसर है तो अलग बात है, बाकी मेरी तरफ से सेशन कंप्लीट हो गया है सर.
कोई क्वेश्चन आंसर है क्या? इज देयर एनी क्वेश्चंस? Location on city with considered as a renovation in the name of the freedom fighter.
चैट बॉक्स में दिख नहीं रहे क्वेश्चंस. कोई चैट बॉक्स में कोई क्वेश्चन दिख नहीं रहे
मुझे दिख रहे हैं इधर. डियर सर, MCA is not allowing the contribution to state fund for COVID-19. Any update?
Pardon, sir?
Saurabh Mehta is asking, MCA is not allowing contribution to state fund for COVID-19. Any
Yes.
update? Question mark है.
As such, there is no update. I discussed in the deliberation कि इसको अगर करना है तो आपको कोर्ट में चैलेंज करना पड़ेगा, बट स्टेट फंड को और सीएम रिलीफ फंड दोनों में ये अलाउड नहीं है एज पर द क्लैरिफिकेशन. हावेवर अगर स्टेट डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी में अगर आपने कोई कंट्रीब्यूशन किया है या पीएम केयर्स फंड में किया है तो वो सीएसआर में एलिजिबल रहेगा.
Okay. Next question, Rajesh Kirloskar is asking about whether provision is made in the account for unspent CSR.
Yes, it is always being made. क्योंकि
Okay.
हमको सेट असाइड तो कर ही देना है, वो सेट असाइड भी तो कर ही देना है वो पैसा.
Third question is Uma Mahadevkar is asking about do you need nominee consent?
Yes. नॉमिनी का कंसेंट चाहिए, रिटर्न कंसेंट चाहिए.
Okay. Next question है, can CA firm OPC apart from the having the proprietorship practice?
हमारा इंस्टीट्यूट अलाउ नहीं करता है सर.
नहीं करता है. This is संचित पंडारे is asking.
हमारा इंस्टीट्यूट अलाउ नहीं करता है, बट पहले जैसे हम कंपनीज एक्ट की बात करें तो वहां उन लोगों ने अमेंडमेंट ला दिया कि बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट के नाम में भी प्रैक्टिस की जा सकती है, इसीलिए अब एलएलपी जो है हम लोग कर पा रहे हैं. ठीक है, तो हमारा इंस्टीट्यूट, सो दिस ओपीसी इज आल्सो अ बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट, लेकिन जब तक हमारा इंस्टीट्यूट या फॉर्म को अलाउ नहीं करेगा तब तक हम लोग नहीं कर सकते.
Next question है Mr. Prakash Thakkar. Mr. Prakash Thakkar is there? Hello. Hello. Question is big. If company is having share paid up capital of 1 lakh and reserve 9 lakhs, bank balance 10 lakhs, converted into LLP as on 15th March 2020, and want to dissolve voluntarily now. What is the tax implication as there is no capital gain on transfer as on conversion?
सर उसमें
Any other implication?
उसमें एक कंडीशन है, no direct or indirect benefit should be given to any of the shareholder of the company within 3 years. अब ये 3 साल के अंदर जैसे ही वो रिजर्व, जैसे ही उसने कन्वर्ट किया, अब 9 लाख का जो रिजर्व था,
Okay.
तो रिजर्व जैसे ही पार्टनर्स के अकाउंट में क्रेडिट होगा तो वो तो डायरेक्ट बेनिफिट मिल ही गया उनको.
Okay.
तो वो वहां पे टैक्सेबिलिटी का इशू अराइज हो जाएगा. अगर यही करना है तो इससे बेटर पहले ये कर लेना चाहिए कि वो जो 9 लाख रुपया है उसका वो बोनस इशू कर दे,
Good idea.
और उसके बाद जब वो ट्रांसफर करेंगे तो वहां तो कोई रिजर्व एंड सरप्लस कोई आएगा नहीं, सिर्फ कैपिटल ही है, तो फिर कोई दिक्कत नहीं आएगी.
Okay. Next question, why can a CA carried out the certificate work in OPC?
सर ओपीसी तो सीए को अलाउड ही नहीं है आज के डेट में, तो अटेस्टेशन का तो क्वेश्चन ही नहीं है.
Next question है, can we do multiple segment business in OPC?
यस सर, देयर इज नो रेस्ट्रिक्शन. द ओनली थिंग इज ऑब्जेक्ट क्लोज अभी एक ही डालने देते हैं वो लोग हर चीज में, तो उसके साथ एलाइड अगर चीजें हैं तो ऑटोमेटिक. दिस इज सेम विद रिस्पेक्ट टू प्राइवेट कंपनी, जैसा प्राइवेट कंपनी में सेम वैसा इसी के अंदर.
Okay. Next question अनुराधा मित्तल का है. Sir, an AOP has paid MAT and is already carried forward for 7 years. This is the last year and the paid MAT will lapse. I wanted to know if AOP can be converted to LLP, where another 8 years carried forward benefit can be given.
सर एओपी को एलएलपी के अंदर कन्वर्ट करना है, आई डाउट, क्योंकि जो शेड्यूल 2, 3 और 4 जो है, they specifically deals with schedule 2 or section 55 of the LLP Act that deals with conversion of a partnership firm first. शेड्यूल 3 जो है वो ट्रीट करता है और सेक्शन 56 कन्वर्जन ऑफ प्राइवेट कंपनी इनटू एलएलपी, और शेड्यूल 4 जो है वो करता है पब्लिक अनलिस्टेड कंपनी, सेक्शन 57 वो करता है पब्लिक अनलिस्टेड कंपनी. तो एओपी का कन्वर्जन कहीं एलएलपी के अंदर कहीं पे भी दिया हुआ नहीं है.
Okay, so can't forward to 8 years. 8 years we can't forward take the benefit of 8 years.
तो वो कन्वर्जन ही नहीं होगा तो बेनिफिट का कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है.
Benefit नहीं मिलेगा. Correct. keeping share capital below 50 lakhs, OPC can do any amount of business above 2 crores. Is it true?
यस पहले सर जो ये 2015 में जो अमेंडमेंट आया उससे पहले वहां पे वर्ड और था, तो जब और था तो कोई भी एक कंडीशन हिट हो जाती तो हमको कंपलसरी अपग्रेड करना पड़ता था। बिजनेस तो हम तब भी कर सकते थे, लेकिन जैसे ही वो कंडीशन ब्रीच हुई उससे ऊपर गए थ्रेशोल्ड से, तो हमको विद इन 60 डेज ये सारा प्रोसेस वगैरह इनिशिएट करके खत्म करना था और 6 महीने के अंदर पूरा प्रोसेस कंप्लीट करना था। लेकिन अब क्या है, उसमें और की जगह एंड लिख दिया, तो एंड लिख दिया तो दोनों कंडीशन अगर ब्रीच होती है तो ही हमको कन्वर्ट करना है, और दोनों कंडीशन हमारी ब्रीच होगी नहीं क्योंकि कैपिटल हम उसके ऊपर जाने नहीं दे रहे। टर्नओवर तो हर कोई बढ़ाना चाहेगा लेकिन कैपिटल तो स्टिल वी कैन कंट्रोल।
So it's a true. Okay.
या
Next question है, in case of loss, is it compulsory to make CSR provision?
सर नहीं, क्योंकि उसमें एवरेज प्रॉफिट लिखा है, तो सेक्शन 198 के हिसाब से हम प्रॉफिट कैलकुलेट करेंगे और एवरेज एनुअल प्रॉफिट जो आएगा उसका परसेंटेज 2% जो है वो हमको करना है। तो अगर प्रॉफिट ही नहीं होगा तो उसको आप जब परसेंटेज में मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे 2%, तो लॉस का 0 करेंगे तो 0 ही आएगा, कोई प्रोविजन आएगा ही नहीं।
Okay. One of this next question है, my one question was about CSR application for renovation of shop. Shop, what do you mean by the renovation of shop? Renovation of shop, they can whether this
रेनोवेशन ऑफ शॉप लिखा है,
हाँ shop.
नहीं अगर सर दुकान का तो उनका खुद की प्राइमरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, सोशल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कैसे होगी?
Renovation shop, I think this is a public property.
हैं?
Renovation of shop is this, I think, the public property.
नहीं वैसे भी अगर आप शॉप है जिसमें आप दुकान चला रहे हैं, खुद की दुकान है आप चला रहे हैं, ठीक है, तो वो तो आपकी प्राइमरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है उसको मेंटेन करने का। नहीं करेंगे तो वो दुकान ऐसे ही बंद हो जाएगी, भले किसी की भी प्रॉपर्टी हो। तो और वो टर्म्स और कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स और एग्रीमेंट, वो कहीं पे भी आपको पर्सनल बेनिफिट मिले वो नहीं। और दूसरा जो शेड्यूल 7 है उसमें 1 से लेकर 12 तक जो आइटम है वो आपको देखने हैं, तो उसमें से ये कहीं पे भी फॉल नहीं करेगा।
But this is, I think, chalk is the some public this circle or something. जैसे this.
नहीं शॉप नहीं आएगा सर उसमें, कहीं पे दुकान तो हो नहीं सकती है।
चौक इज सर्कल,
तो वो तो किसी ना किसी को इंडिविजुअल को बेनिफिट देने के लिए, भले ही भाड़े पे चढ़ाई होगी लेकिन वो तो कमर्शियल एक्टिविटी हो गई एक तरह से।
I think this meaning is चौक is some public properties or visiting place.
तो भी नहीं कर पाएंगे सर, क्योंकि 1 to 12 में कहीं पे भी वो कवर नहीं होगा सर।
ओके
शेड्यूल 7 जो है ऑफ द कंपनीज एक्ट, उसमें 1 to 12 जो आइटम दिए हुए हैं, जिसमें मान लीजिए एजुकेशन है या सोशल वेलफेयर में जो भी चीजें दे रखी है, बैकवर्ड क्लासेस लोगों को आगे लाने के लिए है, या नेशनल जो भी ये प्रॉपर्टीज है, मॉन्यूमेंट्स वगैरह, ये सब कोई आर्ट्स या हिस्टोरिकल साइट्स है, वो सब चीजें हैं, या ऑर्फन विमेन विडो, वो सब चीजें हैं, क्रिएट एम्प्लॉयमेंट, तो उसमें ये कहीं कवर नहीं होगा।
ओके। नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज, इन केस ऑफ क्लोजिंग ओपीसी, the immovable properties are transferred to members, then whether the capital gain is applicable?
In case of
closing OPC, the immovable properties are transferred to members, then whether the capital gain is applicable?
वो मेंबर तो वो एक ही होंगे, वो मेंबर तो एक ही होंगे। ओपीसी में तो सोल मेंबर है सर। और जब वो ट्रांसफर होंगे और जो आपने परचेज किया उससे ऊपर कंसिडरेशन जो है वो आएगा, तो आप एक तरह से आप जब प्रॉपर्टी को बेचेंगे तो सबसे पहले वो प्रॉपर्टी बेच के वो ओपीसी का कैपिटल गेन होगा। जैसे ही आपने प्रॉपर्टी बेची, किसी को भी देंगे, मेंबर को भी देंगे या किसी को भी देंगे, तो ओपीसी को कैपिटल गेन हो जाएगा।
दैट इज कैपिटल गेन टैक्सेबल
हो जाएगा सर।
ओके। Regarding the provision session of LLP, regarding previous session of LLP, what is to be taken care while drafting LLP deed and practical issue on it?
ये क्वेश्चन मुझे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में भी आया था और उस दिन अपन ने डील किया तो जो 13 पॉइंट्स शेड्यूल 1 में है सबसे पहले तो 13 पॉइंट्स जो है वो ऑटोमेटिक एप्लीकेबल हो जाएंगे अगर उनमें से कोई भी पॉइंट या तुम्हारा एग्रीमेंट नहीं है या उनमें से जो पॉइंट एड्रेस नहीं किए हैं हमारी एग्रीमेंट में, तो वो सारे पॉइंट हमारे ऑटोमेटिक हमारी एलएलपी को एप्लीकेबल होंगे। तो सबसे पहले तो हमको वो 13 पॉइंट्स को ध्यान रखते हुए उनमें जो भी स्पेसिफिक पॉइंट है वो सारे एड्रेस हमारे एलएलपी एग्रीमेंट में होने चाहिए। पॉइंट नंबर 1। पॉइंट नंबर 2, वो क्लाइंट का बिजनेस क्या है, वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड द बिजनेस और प्रोफेशन ऑफ द क्लाइंट, उसकी क्या स्पेसिफिक रिक्वायरमेंट है, उसके कौन पार्टनर्स बन रहे हैं, उन पार्टनर्स की क्या स्पेशलिटी है, उनके साथ वो क्या रिलेशंस आपस में वो लोग रखना चाहते हैं, क्या राइट्स एंड ड्यूटीज वो लोग रखना चाहते हैं, वो सारी चीजें उसके अंदर एग्रीमेंट में आनी चाहिए, है ना। तो खाली कट कॉपी पेस्ट नहीं करके वो सारी चीजें अगर हम उस एग्रीमेंट के अंदर ला पाएंगे, और ये 13 पॉइंट्स जो है उसमें से कुछ तो ठीक है जो शुरुआत वाले नेम ये वो है, उसके अलावा बाकी जितने पॉइंट्स है वो डालने हैं। फिर आपका वर्किंग पार्टनर्स का मैंने बताया था कि कंपलसरी आप उसमें मेंशन हो, कई बार डेजिग्नेटेड पार्टनर लिख दिया लेकिन वर्किंग पार्टनर नहीं लिखेंगे तो वो इनकम टैक्स में फिर आपको बेनिफिट लेने में शायद रेमुनरेशन का मुश्किल आए, इसके लिए वो एक क्लियर कट मेंशन होना चाहिए। बाकी तो हम पार्टनरशिप फॉर्म डीड में भी हम देखते ही हैं कि इंटरेस्ट का वगैरह का वो सब डालना है, वो उसमें डालना ही है। इसके अलावा अगर आपको कुछ स्पेसिफिक और चीजें डालनी है जो डिपेंड करती है क्लाइंट के साथ डिस्कशन के अंदर कि हमको किसी को क्या राइट्स नहीं देने हैं, किसी को कुछ स्पेशल राइट देने हैं, फिर एक्सपल्शन ऑफ पार्टनर जो वो भी 13th पॉइंट है उसके अंदर शेड्यूल 1 में कि अगर कोई पार्टनर कुछ गलत कर रहा हो या कुछ भी हो तो उसको कैसे हम फर्म में से निकाल एलपी में से निकाल सकते हैं, क्या कर सकते हैं, ये है। ये बेसिक चीजें हैं जो ध्यान रखने की है। इसके अलावा तो जब हम क्लाइंट से डिस्कशन करें उसके खुद के पॉइंट से उन सबको एड्रेस करने के लिए सारा हमको डिस्कस करके अकॉर्डिंगली करना पड़ेगा।
ओके,
मतलब कोई ऐसा एक कस्टमाइज नहीं हो सकता कि फिट फॉर ऑल, वो नहीं हो सकता है।
I think the last question is, can a OPC take over proprietorship business of a member and issue
Yes,
the
sir.
share to him?
Yes, it can be done.
Okay. I think this questions are over. Any viewer can ask any question. Hello.
हाँ यस बापना जी,
कोई क्वेश्चन हो तो पूछ लो भाई विराग भाई, नहीं तो जो क्वेश्चन थे वो पूछ लिए उनसे।
any participant has any question now they can unmute themselves and ask the question. So first you have to unmute yourself and then only you can ask.
नहीं है?
Anybody has any question?
Sir, I have one question.
What's your name?
Yeah.
Please tell your name and ask question.
Ashok Kumawat.
क्या अशोक जी आपकी आवाज आ रही है, आप सवाल पूछिए।
I applied for name approval of LLP in March and I have received. So basically, normally it is 3 months allowed. Name is reserved. So is it extended by ROC or what 3 months is that is the final?
Yeah, if any name was expiring on 3rd May, 3 मई तक जो भी था उसके अंदर उन्होंने आपको 15 डेज का एडिशनल एक उन्होंने टाइम फ्रेम दिया था कि आप कर सकते हैं। और उसके बाद वापस अभी जैसे 3rd में से 18th में अगर वो चला गया है तो आई थिंक वो लोग वापस से उसके लिए एक्सटेंशन या कुछ लाएंगे, क्योंकि अभी भी कुछ एरिया ऑपरेट नहीं हो पा रहे, ऑफिस नहीं खुली। फॉर एग्जांपल महाराष्ट्र की हम बात करें, मुंबई पुणे वहां नहीं खुला है, तो आई थिंक आरओसी विल टेक केयर ऑफ दिस एंड दे विल कम आउट विद, क्योंकि 18 तारीख तक तो अलाउड था, 15 डेज उनका था। एक 15 डेज था या 20 डेज था वो सर्कुलर था। जस्ट अ सेकंड, होल्ड ऑन एक सेकंड। हेलो हेलो,
Yes, sir.
आवाज आ रही है
Hello.
मेरी? हाँ, तो उसमें 20 डेज का एक्सटेंशन मिला था। तो 3 तारीख से आपको 23 तारीख तक अभी मतलब आप फाइल कर सकते हैं। अभी भी अगर आपका नेम एक्सपायर नहीं हुआ होगा और आप कर सकते हैं। सब्सिक्वेंट वो जब एक्सपायर होगा तो हो सकता है गवर्नमेंट फिर कुछ 15 दिन का एक और कुछ शायद अगर दे दे तो पता नहीं, बट आज की डेट में वो नाम आपका एक्सपायर नहीं हुआ होगा। You can do the filing.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hima ji, you have any question? Yes, Shyam Sundar ji. I think there is no question unanswered now. Because he has covered all questions. संचित जी, आपका क्वेश्चन बाकी रह गया है क्या संचित जी? संचित जी, यू कैन आस्क। हम आपको सुन पा रहे हैं संचित जी, प्लीज आस्क।
हेलो हेलो
हेलो, क्या बोलिए, आवाज आ रही है?
सर आवाज आ रही
हाँ
आ रही है,
हाँ,
आ रही है।
सर? हेलो,
हाँ, आवाज आ रही है संजीत जी, बताइए।
यस यस सर, मेरा क्वेश्चन ऐसा है कि ड्यूरिंग द प्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ बैलेंस शीट ऑफ एलएलपी वेदर द बाइफर्केशन ऑफ कैपिटल इनटू फिक्स्ड एंड करंट कैपिटल इज रिक्वायर्ड टू बी मेड।
Yes.
एक ही कैपिटल जैसे दिखाना पड़ेगा।
It is always advisable to do this. The reason being, हमको क्या होता है जब हम सेक्शन 32 है एलएलपी एक्ट, अमाउंट एग्रीड टू बी कंट्रीब्यूटेड हम लिखते हैं, तो दैट इज लाइक कि हम उसमें लिखते हैं कि भाई 1 लाख रुपया है या 5 लाख रुपया है। अब सब्सिक्वेंटली उसमें अपने फंड इकट्ठे होते हैं, रिजर्व्स ऐड होते हैं, प्रॉफिट बढ़ता रहता है अपना, ठीक है। तो या तो हम रिजर्व एंड सरप्लस की अमाउंट कोई अलग रख लें और उसको ट्रांसफर नहीं करें उनके करंट अकाउंट्स के अंदर, पार्टनर्स अकाउंट्स के अंदर, तो एक वो सिचुएशन हो सकती है। दूसरा, अगर हम लोग उनको पार्टनर्स अकाउंट में जो भी उनका अमाउंट होता है वो हम ट्रांसफर करते हैं, उसके अलावा प्रॉफिट के अलावा भी ये उनको रेम्युनरेशन ट्रांसफर होता है, इंटरेस्ट ट्रांसफर होता है, ये सारी चीजें भी ट्रांसफर होती है, कभी विड्रॉल्स भी होते हैं, ठीक है। तो इसलिए ऑलवेज इट इज बेटर कि आप पार्टनर्स करंट अकाउंट दूसरा मेंशन कीजिए और उसके अंदर डालिए, और जो बैलेंस शीट जब आपकी होगी वो करंट एसेट्स या करंट लायबिलिटीज के तौर पे उसमें जो है आप जब आप ये फॉर्म 8 फाइल करेंगे उसके अंदर उस तरह से मेंशन कर दीजिए।
ठीक है सर, और एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन सर, कि whether there was a extension for filing of annual return in the LLP because of within 16 days from the date of end of financial
30
year.
सितंबर तक है, वो मोराटोरियम दिया हुआ है उन्होंने।
ओके ओके, थैंक यू सर।
और वैसे भी 30 मई तक तो अभी तो करंट डेट की टाइम बाकी है ही है वैसे भी, और जो एलएलपी जो है अपनी सेटलमेंट स्कीम उसके हिसाब से भी अगर पुराने सालों की भी कोई फाइलिंग अगर पेंडिंग है तो 31 अगस्त से पहले उसको कर लीजिए, क्योंकि स्कीम जो है वो 31 अगस्त तक अगर हम फाइलिंग करेंगे तो हमको कोई भी एडिशनल फी नहीं लगेगी, और इम्यूनिटी जो है वो तो 30 सितंबर तक अवेलेबल है ही। 30 सितंबर तक इम्यूनिटी नहीं लगेगी, और 31 अगस्त तक अगर करेंगे पुराने एलएलपी की फाइलिंग की तो ना तो हमको एडिशनल फी लगेगी और एट द सेम टाइम इम्यूनिटी भी मिल जाएगी।
ओके, थैंक यू सर।
वेलकम। I hope there are no more questions now, so we can conclude, I think.
yeah. Hello, Vikas.
Yes, sir.
Viraj, should I शुरू करें?
Yes, sir. So there is technical error from my side. Now I have decided.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you so much, Vikas. It's my pleasure. I want to thank you. So I'm trying from one device to another device, and finally I can come. So thank you once again, Vikas ji, for wonderful session of 2 days deliberation. We are very thankful to you, sir, and you have solved each and every answer. So that is members also are very well aware about the aspect of the each topic, LLP, OPC, and CSR is nicely covered, including the interactive session of the question answer. So thank you so much. Bafna ji, please.
It is my privilege to propose vote of thanks to Honorable CA Vikas Jain. Behind every success of webinar session at professional platform lies on the very first attempt of the most committed faculties as wonderful lecture on CSR and OPC today by Sri Vikas Jain. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the immense contribution of our dedicated faculty like Vikas Jain, who is a very professional, dedicated, active professional at Ahmedabad branch as well as WRC as a regional council member. This all credit goes to the webinar, which goes to the visionary guide of Sri Vikas Jain, who has always guided and inspired CA Virag Shah and Abhishek Shah with full support and blessing, and thanks to Vikas ji. And gratitude to our valued viewer also, who always line up our expectations, who are pillar of the strength for powerful educational weapon by which can change the world. Thanks to all viewers and Vikas Jain sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you all the attendees for the patient hearing. And yes, sir, they are like my brothers only, Virag bhai, Abhishek bhai. So there is nothing like I am always there, always there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.